Hi, this is Michelle Sam from Sammy Wong's Kitchen. Today I'm going to be continuing with our sourdough bread baking 101 series. I am going to be talking about adapting to your environment with your sourdough baking so that it would result in better outcomes for your sourdough bread. So why am I going through this? Well, one thing is I live in fairly ideal temperatures. I live in Southern California, where the temperature on a cold day is 60 degrees and the average is about 70 to 75. But not everyone in this world lives in those conditions. So what I wanted to do is explain to you how sourdough is affected by temperature, time, and humidity. Temperature. In order to understand a little bit about sourdough, it's always best to go back to science. And in research, they have shown that the ideal temperature in which sourdough ferments is between 21 to 30 degrees. So that's between 70 to 85 degrees F. As I mentioned in the first video, the benefits of sourdough, at these ideal temperatures, this is when the lactobacillus or lactic acid bacteria will break down the carb in the flour and thus release the minerals that makes it then a more nutritious bread. So we want this nutritious bread, and this is the range of temperatures where that is going to occur. Outside of these ideal temperatures, what happens is either your enzyme activity is very slow or very fast. It's very slow when it's very cold, and it'll be very fast when it's very hot. At either of these extreme temperatures, it creates a lot of byproduct in the form of some kind of acid. So in order not to get too technical, just think of it as it gets very sour at extremely high temperatures, and it also gets very sour at extremely low temperatures. What we are going to be doing is for our proofing, that's when we're going to be placing it in the refrigerator so that at these temperatures, it will create the sourness that is so characteristic of sourdough. So by having these two combinations of temperatures, we are then getting the benefits of the sourdough as well as the taste. So how do we control the temperature of your dough? You can control it by two ways. One, controlling the temperature of the actual dough, and two, controlling the temperature of the environment. If you live in an area that is cold, one thing you can do is either start off with warmer water than room temperature water, either mix some boiling water with some room temperature water to elevate the temperature a little bit before mixing in your starter. Or during the resting period between your stretch and folds, put that in an environment that is warmer, either a cold oven with just the oven light on, or maybe even a microwave oven with just the oven light on. The thing with a microwave oven, the enclosure is a little small, so maybe you'll need to keep the door a little ajar so that it's not too warm. So that's how you would take care of it when it's really cold. If you live in an environment where the temperature is above 90 degrees, your dough will be very active. So one of the things you can do is start off with a cooler dough, putting some ice cubes in your water, reducing the temperature to below room temperature, and then you'll have a cold dough. So if you just started off with a cold temperature dough, that'll help you get a better outcome. I did mention temperature, and I alluded to time. So how does time affect it? If your temperature is high, the enzyme activity will be very high. And when the activity is high, what you can do is compensate that with time. So between every stretch and fold during bulk fermentation, there's a rest period. Usually that rest period is between 20 and 40 minutes, depending on the temperature of your room. If your temperature is really warm and you have a lot of enzyme activity, then you can reduce that rest period. So maybe instead of 30 minutes, you take it down to 20 minutes. And so you'll do a stretch and fold, 20 minutes, stretch and fold, 20 minutes. If you live in a very cold area where enzyme activity is a little sluggish, then what you want to do is give it a little longer for the rest period. And so instead of maybe half an hour, you will do 40 minutes. And that will just allow a little more distribution of the bacteria by giving it a little more time. So temperature, time, and humidity. Humidity does play an important role. You want to have it in a fairly humid environment. They say that 60 to 80% humidity is ideal. What I do for home baking is I proof my dough in a banneton and put a plastic over it and seal it up, and then it'll proof in this humid environment. What you're doing when you have this humid environment is to prevent a skin from developing on the dough. When the skin develops, it really prevents the dough from expanding, and the expansion of the dough is what's giving it the rise. You want it to expand so that it can be nice and porous rather than dense. That is achieved by creating a humid environment. As I said, temperature, time, and humidity. Lastly, the type of flour does affect the outcome of your bread. It's not so much the environmental factors, but it's just the nature of the flour. So some flours have higher proteins, and the higher proteins will require a higher hydration percentage, which we learned about in the previous video. And this will affect the outcome of the bread. So I hope these are helpful to you as you go through and think about, what conditions you are baking in and adapting to them so that you'll have better outcomes. But if your first bread is just absolutely amazing, because I'm such a great teacher. No, if you have beginner's luck and your first bread is really great, then that's wonderful. But for me, it took me a long time to figure out the bread that I liked. And I actually had a sourdough diary, but don't tell anybody that. And I just took copious notes, and every time there was an outcome I didn't like, I made some suggestions for the next time and kept tweaking and tweaking until I found the right procedure that worked well for the environment that I was living in. So it might be your first time and you just happen to nail it, and that's great. But if you don't lose heart, because it's a process, and just keep tweaking, just keep changing, and finally you will land on the perfect baker's percentage and procedure that really works for your environment. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy baking! More recipes can be found on sammywongskitchen.com or social media. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks!